sorry about this. I didn't really have much time earlier today, but
not all schools are closed yet, but this is 26th of March. Not all schools are closed, but some schools are closing.
And just check if there's toilet paper, because last time, like a few days ago, there was no toilet paper. I'll see if there's toilet paper now. See you soon.
原本的度假胜地，而且也算是很多台湾人打工换宿度假的首选国家之一。现在澳洲的情形到底是怎么样呢？重金礼聘到我们的澳洲小鲜肉来帮我们分享。那他还特别提醒我，要让他在影片上看起来帅一点。那我当然也不负重任的，把他变成全球女性最风靡的澳洲队长。这次非常特别的是，他录了2大段影片，2段影片的时间相差18天。就在短短的18天，你可以非常明显的看出来，整个澳洲就是透露年纪。但怎么个风云变色法呢 ？Let's check it out, yo.
Hey Joyce, how are you going? This is just a quick COVID update of the situation that's going on in Australia. So the last video I made was on the 8th of March. That was 18 days ago. Today's the 26th of March, and the situation is completely different.
we haven't noticed too many too many precautions that the government's taking. More so just public advice. I mean, there's lots of notices about it, but there's not too much forced action. Just recently, there's been huge festivals here. Like last night was the Ultra Festival, which gathered apparently almost 15,000 people, obviously from all around the world, and there was no precautions to stop that, just considering the advice to stay away from big crowds. People are not really that concerned here in Australia. Basically here in Sydney, people aren't really wearing masks very much. It's not that popular here. Most local people here aren't wearing them. Now in the street, you can't see too many people wearing them. Maybe like a few every 10 minutes or so, but a few places that are putting hand sanitizers at the entrance to the building, and that's in every single building in my university. I've also noticed that at a few shops and restaurants and other places around Sydney. So that's becoming more popular, whereas before we've never seen that. Private campaigns by tourist companies or tourism companies saying, oh look, you can travel within Australia. There are a lot of people promoting travel locally. I feel like the prevalence, especially in Australia, is so low right now. There's a very low number of cases, unlike in China and Korea, of course, right now. But here it's not a concern, and even traveling to places like Singapore where we have more cases, it's still not as a concern to me. I mean, although some people are freaking out a lot more, I feel like it's statistically the chances of contracting it is very small, and people do overreact a bit regarding their thoughts on, can I go outside, can I go here, can I go there, or about my own response. Personally, I'm not actually making any changes to my life, like regarding this current epidemic. It doesn't really affect me at all, or what I decide to do, just because I feel the prevalence is so low here in Australia, so I don't feel I have to make any other changes. Right now here in Australia it's fine, and most people aren't making too many changes to their lives or how they go about everyday life.
When I last made the video, we had less than 100 cases, only about 70 cases in Australia. Now we have almost 3,000, and that's only been 18 days. So as you can see, it's like a crazy difference. There's also been a lot more changes in terms of people's reaction here and the government's reaction. So back when I made the video, like wearing a face mask in Sydney was not like that popular. There was not many people doing it. You'd see someone every so often. Now it's very different. A lot of people wearing face masks. Face masks sold out everywhere. Not only toilet paper is sold out, but also meat, basic things like women's sanitary pads, pasta, canned foods like long life foods, all sold out as well. Pretty much everywhere. Like, it's actually crazy how much stuff you can't buy. So the government's reaction now, like, we've had a lot more changes. Pretty much the whole, like most parts of Australia, in like a fairly, like what's called a stage 2 lockdown. So we have pretty much shops that aren't essential are not open, so bars, pubs, all closed everywhere. There's just less things that people can do because everything's closing now. Schools are closing as well. Not all schools are closed, but some schools are closing. Schools is one of the things that Australia's been slow to close. Like, the government's sort of opinion about closing schools is that it's not a good idea for various reasons, but it's kind of inevitable. It's going to happen soon. Also, our state borders are closed now, so basically if you want to travel interstate, you can't unless you're like traveling back home. So here's an example. The last video I did like 18 days ago was in Sydney.
Hey from Sydney guys, my name is Stuart and I'm here just right next to Sydney Harbour Bridge.
I've actually moved back to Adelaide recently because of the situation. My university's pretty much closed. We have online classes but no attendance for the whole semester, and that's confirmed already. So I've moved back to Adelaide, which is South Australia. I moved back on Sunday, the 22nd, and on the 24th is when Australia closed the borders. So basically, if you are not from the state that you're going to, then you're not free to travel, or they would make you sign a pretty much a stay-at-home notice or something, like a stay-at-home, like I declare that I'll stay at home for 2 weeks or self-isolate. So that's happening now. Basically, we have checkpoints on our state borders, which is something I've never heard of before, because we have state borders in Australia, but they don't have any meaning. There's no like restrictions between them. And we also received a notification from the Prime Minister recently, basically insisting that anyone who can work from home or doesn't have to be in work physically, just don't go to work. So that's pretty much pushing everyone to working from home now. So that's including myself, which is really, interesting. It's an interesting time to be like when everyone's doing Zoom calls, Skype calls to communicate. My classes are all online, so pretty much we're using Zoom. Also, this is not new information. This was like, I think about a week ago or a bit more, but Australia has completely shut off their borders to international travellers. So we have absolutely no planes coming in pretty much, except for people returning home. And same goes for travelling outside Australia. Pretty much Australia has issued what we call a level 4 travel warning for Australians to not leave, basically saying do not travel, do not go anywhere, which obviously makes sense in this time. They've also recommended do not travel interstate either, so interstate domestic travel is also highly discouraged. And at the moment, if anyone does travel interstate, you'll be asked to sign pretty much a declaration or like an agreement that you'll stay at home during the 14 days after arriving in the state. So that's pretty much Australia-wide right now. What's happening here in Australia is getting a lot worse, and people are really panicking. Like, completely different story 2 weeks ago. Super quiet in Sydney. Like, when I left on the weekend, there's pretty much no one out, which is great, obviously. And I've heard from people who are using the transport that it's pretty much empty. People are the only ones on the train. So people are sort of listening now, but there's still a lot of criticism for a lot of people here in Australia that just don't really take it seriously. Like, there was sort of some apparently international headlining news that of the photos of Bondi Beach with like thousands of people on the beach, and this was only just a few days ago. So there's a lot of people who don't really take the social distancing measures seriously, but I think our like population as a whole is gradually sort of becoming more aware and caring about these kind of things. There's also been a pretty big job crisis here in Australia. They're expecting or like anticipating about 2 million people in Australia to lose their jobs. Now that's pretty crazy considering we only have a population of like 25 million. So there's been a lot of people lining up for income support and other things like that, which is obviously a service the government offers, but now it's being like taken up by a lot more people. There's big queues of 100+ people lining up to go to these welfare offices, basically, as more and more people being laid off.
相信大家从前后两个影片可以很明显的看到，在短时间内的变化其实是剧烈而且快速的。就 Stuart 的描述，我觉得他们整体措施算是蛮全面的，而且这些措施都是在澳洲前所未见。在我们的对话当中，他真的很多次用了 "It's crazy here"， 他甚至还说 "It's World War III"。警察站岗边界，开车经过 State Border 就要签署隔离同意书。你就想象，你从桃园开车到台北，居然就要签署同意书。 澳洲地广人稀，它的人口跟台湾其实是差不多的，那他们的 social distance 应该比较好保持吧？那可能对袋鼠而言，他们的 social distance 应该更难保持，因为袋鼠比人多。就像 Stuart 所说的，失业问题应该是他们未来要面对的残酷挑战。
不得不说，这次肺炎的发展真的是太迅速了，不知道是在赶投胎，还是搞得很多国家甚至都要朝令夕改才能跟上它的步伐，就变成剪辑影片的紧急性也对我造成了蛮大的压力。毕竟这些疫情现况，它们都是有时效性的。为了带给大家最新鲜的资讯，其实我每次剪影片都有种火烧屁股的感觉。那也特别感谢 Stuart 帮我们录了第2支影片，来帮大家更新澳洲的最新情形。这支影片对我来说还有另外一个挑战，就是澳洲人讲英文实在是太快了。
DJ drop the beats。以下提供几个 rapper 的片段。
Sorry about this, I didn't really have much time earlier today, but
Not all schools are closed yet, but this is of 26th of March. Not all schools are closed, but some schools are closing.
and just check if there's toilet paper because last time, like a few days ago, there was no toilet paper. I'll see if there's toilet paper now. See you soon.